The views and opinions heard on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of the host.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Real Spiritual Talk Radio.
My breathing had stopped for so long that my heart actually ended up stopping.
You saw what I did. You said that I was going to die.
And then I remember being gone. I wasn't there anymore.
I sort of lifted up about 6 feet above my body.
A pinprick of light appeared and came rushing toward me faster than the speed of light.
And then this light, all of a sudden it was all completely around me.
He says, I am God. Yes, I am real.
The main message was loving yourself and loving others.
It was clearly shown to me.
It was really hard to put into words. It felt like I had been there before.
It was just this very personal, impersonal, unconditional love.
Welcome back to another edition of Real Spiritual Talk Radio. I am your host, Lamont Gates, once again bringing you the world of faith, metaphysicality, and spirituality. Today, my guest shifted from disbelief into belief and ultimately into experience. In doing so, he discovered that what he gained from the spirit realm was still very accessible to him in the present. Let's get it started. Joining me via Skype, ladies and gentlemen, is near-death experiencer, Mr. Alan Thomas. Alan, welcome to Real Spiritual Talk Radio.
Thank you, Lamont. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm excited for the whole thing.
Absolutely, and I understand this is your first time giving a near-death experience interview, although you've got a lot of communications experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mostly talk about Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff like that, but I don't really. In fact, I really never shared the near-death thing too much. Just maybe family and friends.
Well, that's great because there is certainly an audience for these accounts who get spiritual enlightenment out of these stories. So you've certainly come to the right place. But before we get into your experience, walk us a bit down memory lane and give us an overview of your religious upbringing, if any. What were you taught on the topic of religion and or spirituality as a child?
Well, I didn't grow up. I didn't grow up in church or anything like that, and I don't know what you would call me, a heathen, right? I partied and had a good old time, just like probably everybody. And in around 1984, I started having a problem with drinking, and I met my wife when we were in high school, and we dated a couple of years. And then we got married, and I started partying more and more, and I was getting in trouble, and real trouble. And then I couldn't remember how I was winding up in jail. So one day, I was losing my friends, I was losing my job, I was losing my wife, everything. And I was sitting out in what they call Courthouse Park, just got let out of jail for 30 counts of attempted manslaughter with a vehicle. Thought I was going to be in jail forever, but they told me the gang I fought with or tried to run over probably was worse punishment than jail. And I was sitting out there and I said, if there's a God, I need a God right now because I can't stop. And I've tried and tried. From that point on, I never drank or partied again. And I didn't even want it. And some of my friends, the party friends, they kind of just kicked me to the curb because I wasn't any fun anymore, for them. But it started me onto a trip where I traveled the world with a camera and did video productions and got in the casino industry. After a little while, I wanted to I did my own business most of the time or entrepreneur. And I got in with the casino, worked my way up to marketing director. I held the food and beverage director over a couple of restaurants in the casino. They taught me the computers. So then I became the network administrator, worked my way up to that. And during that time, my dad died in 86 at his second triple bypass. But they wanted to check me out, my heart out, and that started the whole thing for me.
So just to clarify, you started out as a non-believer in spirituality, God, etc., but ended up calling out for God later on due to some trouble you were in. So is it fair to say that from that point on, you became a believer?
Oh yeah. He came into my life like huge in a really big way. And I don't know, I always felt like when I was 12, I used to sit in the closet and somebody gave me a little bitty New Testament, and I would read it and I would talk to God, right? And I was just a kid, no church training, no anything, but I would just talk to him and read that little New Testament. And I felt like I was getting to know Jesus, even though I never heard anything but I felt like he picked me out for something. And that's how I felt all the rest of the time of my life. And when I finally cried out to him, he came into my life huge, and he opened up some doors that I had been trying to get into. And it was all him. I knew it was all him. I can't have any credit. He did it, and the same goes all the way through my life. We raised foster children, and the whole thing. I mean, it's all God has been the biggest part of my life. He's first for everything, and I'm second. My family, comes in under that too, behind God, and I don't worry about anything anymore after the near death thing, at all. Like, I'm not afraid about dying for sure.
Well, let's get into your near-death experience. How old were you when it occurred, and what was it that caused it?
I was 42, and I was real healthy. I worked at the casino, and I had arranged a gym membership for all the casino people, so we were all working out. But because of my dad passing on his first heart attack was when he was 34, I think, and he had a triple bypass. Then when he was 48, he had to go in for the second triple bypass, and he didn't live but a couple days after the surgery. Because of that history, my doctor, I started having like a anxiety attack. I think I drank too much coffee that day or something, because really there was nothing wrong with me. But he's like, you need to go check yourself in and get an angiogram. And I told him, okay, I'll do that, And so we set it up, and I got the angiogram, and I woke up. They put me out from the angiogram, and I actually woke up in the ICU, and I was tripping out. Like, I knew what the ICU was because I'd been in there with my dad, a bunch of times, and I was like, what's going on here? And the nurse tells me, hey, they just wanted to observe you, and this is the only bed they had. And I told her, that's BS. You put me in the hallway before you'll put me in the ICU. It costs a lot of money to be in the ICU. You have to be something wrong with you, And they had me in there all day, and they were checking the pulse in my legs. And they never said one way or the other what was wrong with me, just observation. And that's like 8 o'clock in the morning when I woke up in there. Around 11 o'clock at night, I'm starting to become a bad patient. I'm losing my patience. And I just started really hammering them, like, I'm hungry. I want to go home, or I want to know what's going on. If you're going to keep me, and finally they just released me, and I went home. I went to work, but there was something wrong with my leg. It got really bad. And after a few days, I was rolling around on the floor with all this pain and burning and everything. And I finally went back to the doctor after 7 or 8 days or so, and they couldn't find a pulse in my right leg. And then they freaked out, they started telling me, oh man, you don't have any pulse in your leg. That means there's no blood flow. That means, you might lose your leg. Meet me at the hospital. And I met them, and they did another angiogram. They instantly just accepted me in there really quick, ran through the hospital to the surgery area, did an angiogram, and then they showed me where they had accidentally blocked the artery using a collagen plug that was supposed to melt over the artery and stop the bleeding faster than direct pressure. But they did direct pressure too, and the nurse or whoever it was accidentally pushed that collagen plug into the artery and had blocked the artery. So they woke me up and said, we're taking you straight in surgery. You might not have a right leg when you come out of this. It doesn't look good. And I started freaking out, like, oh my God, no right leg. Like, I was really tripping. And the last thing I remember was them putting me out to go to surgery. The next thing I know, I'm standing in this valley, and I don't have any pain. There's nobody around me. I'm all by myself. It's a beautiful place. There's no shadows. There's these oak trees like here and there around this valley, and the valley is gold, like golden wheat. And I mean, it is beautiful, gorgeous. And I look off in the distance and I see these mountains with snow caps on them. And I'm like, oh, I love mountains. I spent a lot of time in the mountains, grew up in Yosemite National Park. So, I mean, raised my kids in the foothills of these mountains by Yosemite. And I thought to myself, man, I'm going to check that out one day. And as soon as I thought that, I was standing in the mountains, and it was beautiful. And there was all these different flowers with all these colors I'd never seen before. And the fragrance of the mountains was absolutely off the hook compared, I love the forest smell, but this was like, better than anything I ever smelled. And I mean, I was taking big, deep breaths, and I was actually facing, I guess, away from a 180 from the valley. And I had no idea though. And I started turning and just taking in all this beautiful forest. And as I turned around, I realized I was looking over this valley, and I was standing there thinking about things, and I realized all I had to do is think about something, anything, and I could know whatever it was whatever my question was, I knew the answer. And I was kind of playing with that for a little bit, I don't know how long. It didn't seem like time. There was time, I mean, it just seemed like you had plenty of time, and there was nobody holding the watch. It was a really weird feeling. I can't even describe it really. And then all of a sudden the thought came to me that maybe I should have stayed in the valley because there was somebody there that I was supposed to meet. And I was thinking, that kind of freaked me out, like, oh no, I missed something that I needed to be at. And what am I going to do? Now I'm all the way over here. I could see the valley, but that's a long ways, and it never occurred to me that I could think and be back at where I was. So, as all these thoughts are rushing through my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, I should have never left. As soon as I thought that, I was standing back in there in the valley, and there was two light beings. They look like light. Pure white shimmering light, but I knew they were human form. They had like a human shape, and I couldn't see them because they were so bright. It didn't hurt my eyes, but they were so bright that I couldn't see details. So I kind of squinted my eyes, and when I did that, I could tell I was looking at two men, and they had like white robes or white tunic kind of clothes. And then one of them spoke to my mind and he said, are you done? And I thought, like, uh-oh, like I'm busted, I don't know what he means by am I done? Like, I really didn't start yet. I haven't really began what journey I'm on. I have no idea what he's talking about. And it just, my mind went crazy. Don't know what to answer, And then he said it again. He goes, are you done? I'm like, oh man, done doing what? That's what I thought. Done doing what? And I've come to realize now that what he was meaning was, am I ready to go with them, or am I done with my life and ready to go to stay there, or do I want to go back? That's what he was asking me. But I'm like, done doing what? And then I'm standing there waiting for an answer, not thinking anything, because I don't know what he's going to say next. And he says, what about your kids? What about your wife? And I thought, what? I hadn't even thought about them. And my mind went to them. And I even knew where they were. At that point, I knew where everyone was. It was weird that as soon as you think of something, you know exactly where they are and what they're doing and everything. And my mind went to that. And then all of a sudden it felt like I got sucked up, kind of like lifted off the ground, and something was pulling me. And I picked up speed real fast, and those guys disappeared really quick. Just went out of sight. The valley went out of sight. And then I slammed into my body real hard. And I opened my eyes, and the doctor's face was right in my face, and he's yelling at me, stay with us, and I closed my eyes and I just kind of knocked out again. And the next thing I know, I'm in the recovery room and they're waking me up again. And they start telling me, what happened. They told me they damaged my leg forever. But I wouldn't know the full extent of the damage until about a year or a year and a half. Because the nerves will grow back, and it takes like a year or so before they fully can grow to whatever they're going to be at. And then past that, you'll know exactly, how disabled or whatever you're going to be, how it's going to be. And they told me I couldn't bend. Don't turn over, stay in one position, and here's a little button. Oh, and then he tells me, you died twice on the table, and the first time we brought you back pretty quick, and it was a 7-hour surgery, and you died soon as we took the clot out and then reestablished the blood flow. What was pooling inside your leg, nasty blood, hit your brain. You died. And you came back really quick the first time, but the second time we were worried, they were having a little bit of a time getting me back. And he said, then finally we got you stabilized, and here you are, but you'll never be the same. You have a leg, but you're never going to be the same after that. And he was right, man. I was never the same ever again, ever.
This is an extremely fascinating account. So you received actual verification that you were indeed clinically dead by this medical doctor, as a lot of people listening to near-death experience accounts look for some sort of verification on clinical death. That's number one. Secondly, I have a question. While you were in this otherworldly place of beauty and light beings, did it ever feel like a dream state or like reality?
It was real. In fact, it was more real than where I'm at right now, or anywhere I've ever been, tell you the truth. It was so real. In fact, I thought about that, before I left the valley, when I was standing in the valley and I was looking around, that was one of my thoughts, like, where am I? What's going on here? What, is this real? And the answer came to me that I was in this valley that leads to this God city where God and everyone is at. This valley is like a place that you pass through, like the valley of death or whatever you want to call it, Yea, though I passed through the valley of death or whatever. Well, that's where I was, and I was in between. I never made it all the way to the city. If I would, and I knew if I went to the city, and I knew which direction it was too, which is kind of weird. You just know. I knew that if I went that way, I couldn't come back. So long as I stayed right there, I wasn't gonna, I could go back to where I came from, or, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was mostly then it was like, wow, that's interesting, And then I saw the mountains. I'm like, oh, I gotta explore, like I want to see that right there. At least someday I'm gonna see that. I didn't know I was gonna go immediately there though, but I started realizing when I got there to the mountains, I thought, how did I do that? And I knew then all of a sudden, whatever you think or ask, and I knew that you could travel at the speed of thought in this place. So there's no walking for miles or anything. Like if I wanted to be at that city, all I had to do was think, let's go to that city, and I would be there at the speed of thought. And so I didn't do that. I was like, I'm staying right here. I'm going to check out the mountains, and all this. And so that's how it goes,
Now, what was it like attempting to reveal this information to others? Did you tell someone immediately after, or did you wait a while before sharing?
I held off for quite a while. In fact, I held off so long because I didn't think anyone would believe me. Right after I found God, I seen Bigfoot, and I watched him for about an hour and a half, okay, on a deer hunt. And when I started telling people about Bigfoot, everybody made fun of me. A lot of people, So when I had the near-death thing, I thought, geez, I tell a little bit about Bigfoot and everybody thinks I'm wacko ready to lock me in a loony bin. I'm not going to tell them anything about this. And I kind of forgot about it for really years and didn't tell anyone, not even my wife. And then one day I was fooling around, I was getting ready to do one of my, like a live stream on YouTube, live thing. And I was getting my equipment set up and everything. And I had the TV playing. It was just playing. My wife's doing something, not paying attention. I'm not paying attention. All of a sudden, the doctor on the TV started yelling, "Stay with us, stay with us." And it all came flooding back like wham, oh my God, there it was, the whole thing just came back. And it freaked me out so bad I had to go outside and gather myself, because I totally, like, it was like all of a sudden it was like yesterday, like, or last minute. It just came flooding back, all the feelings and emotions. And then I came back and was telling my wife, that's when I finally told her. It was probably like 7 years ago or something. And this happened in April of 2000, April 8th, 2000. So here it is, a long time, and I'm finally telling her, and she believes me because of all the other stuff that's happened to me since then. I've done some, after I died, a whole bunch of different things opened up to me that I had no idea that I could do, but I think I was born with it. I think you're born with it. I think everyone's born with this, but for some reason that near death unlocked it all.
And I'm glad you mentioned this because many near-death experiencers typically describe coming back with some sort of precognition, a sensitivity to nature, more empathy, colors become more clearer, birds are heard more clearer, other people's thoughts are heard. Did you return with anything similar to these?
Yeah. One of the first things I noticed was animals. Like, I had a ranch and I had some horses and stuff like that. And people had different animals up there in the hills and horses. And I didn't really, before that, I never really, the horses were just horses, and I never really had kind of any kind of relationship with any animals. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody thought I hated animals. But for some reason, after that happened, I still had the same affinity with animals of my feelings with it, but only the animals, like the horses would come over and nudge me and start leaning on me, and dogs would come over, and cats, and I mean, that like the animals just would come to me and start loving all over me and stuff like that. And some people would tell me, hey, watch out, that dog bites. And, I look down and the dog's wagging its tail and licking me, and I'm petting it and everything. I'm like, really? It bites, huh? And the people are like, man, I never seen my cat do that before. And even birds like parrots and stuff like that. It's weird, but only I could have a relationship with them immediately. And it's almost like I could know what they're thinking and the whole thing. And it's really weird. And it still happens, Then there's the paranormal side of it. I saw the Bigfoot. And then I had the near-death experience later. But after I realized I was disabled, I couldn't work anymore. It took me like 5 years to mourn the old life. I can't hike, I can't this, I can't, a bunch of stuff I can't do that I used to do. So it took me a while to figure out I can only do what I can do, and I can't worry about what I can't do. And I started going to the woods with some friends. I found friends that believed in Bigfoot, and we would do like hauntings, houses that are haunted and stuff like that. And I could tell which rooms these entities were in. I could speak with God, and God will like impress on me things. Like I could ask what's in that room, like who is it? And I was trying to believe like everyone else that, they would tell me, it's my grandma. My grandma, she died. And I know it's my grandma because it smells, she has the same perfume, and it feels like my grandma, And I would be in there, and I would be like talking with God and tell him like, who is it the grandma? We're trying to do an investigation here and figure this out. And then God started telling me, no, the grandma is with me. There's no grandma there. Well, if it's not grandma, who is it? And he led me to some scriptures that showed me that it is a familiar spirit. So the grandmas and the uncles and the grandpas and the dads and the moms and everything everybody thinks it is, it's not that. It is these demonic things that have been on the earth for a long time. They attach themselves to families. They know everything about your family. They know the smells of your grandma. They know how to be like your dad, whatever. And they have to get permission to be there. And the only way they could do that is become familiar enough with your family to be able to be like the person that you're yearning to know about, and how, whatever that you lost. And then they become that. And then you allow them in. You talk to them, hey, have a seat. You let them be inside your life, and then your life starts having problems, and you don't even associate those problems with the entity, because that entity is your grandpa. He would not do that, or your grandma. They wouldn't hurt you. So that isn't what it is, right? So yeah, so all those things came with that after thing, after you pass and come back.
Yeah, strong after effects you've seemed to come back with. Speaking of God, how has this changed, if any, since your near-death experience? I know you mentioned becoming a believer prior to your near-death experience, but has your belief been swayed at all since?
It changed to a more like me, like a one-sided relationship. It changed Like I used to be talking to God, but I never heard God, I knew he was in my life and doing things because you could look backwards and see where he helped you. That was my relationship with God, right? Well, now it's more, I have a relationship with him kind of like I could have a friendship with you. And I can relate, and we can talk and chat, and I get feedback from you. You get feedback from me. It's that way now. And not so much hearing things audibly, even though I have heard audibles, him speak to me straight up audible. It's more it's almost like a mind speak type thing. He puts strong impressions, gives you a thought, like look this script. You'll get a scripture to look up, and you go to the Bible and you look it up, and he talks to you like that, and it'll be exactly what you were looking for or asking for, and it'll be dead on every single time. And it's hard to explain. I don't even know how I would even teach it, or how I could tell somebody how to have that. It comes natural to me though, since passing, coming back, or the near death thing.
And I believe that would be your answer. Exactly. That this really isn't teachable. It's natural, or perhaps spiritual, specifically for those like yourself who experience what most others never have, which would be the near-death experience itself. So is there anything you'd like to say to those out there about the afterlife, whether there is one or not, or to those who are on the fence about believing, since you've been in both positions?
There is one thing. Jesus is real. Okay. I mean, real as it gets, more real than us. And he is actually the love and everything everyone feels. And there is other, what would you say, interdimensional beings that are around, and they are bent on fooling people with false anything that they can to not let you have a connection with this love, with Jesus, with that love where you really belong. And life is, you don't die, you just move to be with Jesus, and it's beautiful. But don't fall for the false stuff, and it's so, there's so much of it, and then we get so into the worldly stuff, things, and money or whatever, all this stuff that's all the world. We lose sight of that other realm where we really were created to be in. And I hate for anyone to get so focused on these other things that they don't have a relationship with Jesus and that love and all that, and then wind up going where these demonic things that you're watching on TV, and the zombies and all this other stuff, that you get so hooked up on. I'd hate for you to miss your real true place by following that, because they have no future, and don't follow them because you won't have a future.
Well, Alan, I want to thank you for coming on Real Spiritual Talk Radio and sharing this eye-opening information with us.
Can I really quick?
Sure.
I have a YouTube called Squatch Zone. Everybody go check it out. I have other stuff on there and they could find out more there, about how I am or stuff like that.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alan Thomas. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Real Spiritual Talk Radio. Please go to my Facebook page at Real Spiritual Talk Radio. There you will find past shows and other relevant information based on near-death experiences. And once again, I hope you all have been much more spiritually enlightened by this account and the various other accounts. God willing, I am aiming for more. And with that said, I am your host, Lamont Gates, and this is Real Spiritual Talk Radio, now signing off.